Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is change of state. Then what we're talking about is not moving from one physical location or state to another, but actually the transformation from, for instance, a liquid to a solid or solid to gas, a change of fundamental state, which transforms our way of being in the world, which transforms our relationships and our interrelationships. And I think it'll be an interesting conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. And good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. It's great to have you joining us on this Friday. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us. So let's take a minute or two to get present, and then we'll dig into today's conversation. So take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your molecules, all your electrons, all your cells, creating this brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the motion, the pressure, the temperature, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, change of state. What we're talking about here is a shift of awareness, really. Change of state as a metaphor for a shift of awareness that really shifts the foundational experience of being and how we're relating to the experience of life. And this comes from several conversations, actually. It's not that different, in theme from what we've spoken about quite often, the power of perspective. But it comes from a conversation with a client friend who underwent a weekend that, well, it was a little bit more than a weekend, but that was just so riddled with Herculean kinds of challenges, one after another, and they kept having to rise to an occasion to accomplish superhuman feats to allow an event to occur that they were producing, and just one thing after another, relentlessly, like Sisyphus, climbing the mountain, pushing that boulder. And it just went on and on and on, and there was no respite. And it by the end of it, they were just sort of a puddle but they accomplished superhuman feats along the way, just handling circumstances that were unmanageable, and they rose to the demands of the occasion. And something else that was part of this, they were telling me all the challenges that they faced, and it was truly relentless for days. And they also told me that in the midst of all those profound challenges, that they kept receiving equally profound signs that they were being supported by their beloved grandmother who had passed, and her favorite color was purple. And in the midst of all this craziness and all these demands and deep profound challenges, that there were signs like a huge purple semi truck that just sort of passed by at one point, and purple buses going one way and the other at an airport, and purple flowers along a pathway. And it just, again and again and again, this purple presence that they associated with their beloved grandmother. And with those symbols, there was a recognition of this other person's presence, even through this crushing hardship. And I mean, there was a car accident where the two cars in front slammed into each other, and then there was their car, and then the car behind them got slammed into, but they were unscathed. Their car was untouched. And it just crazy experience. And when we're talking about state change, if we look at how this experience could be internalized, it could have just been devastating and crushing. It was in so many ways, the whole experience. And this person said that they felt that they had just been on a walkabout, that it was an initiation, that it was a spiritual passage, and that what they recognized, what happened was they recognized that they rose to all these challenges that were insurmountable, and they triumphed over all these challenges, one after another, like crazy extreme challenges that required superhuman endurance and commitment and resourcefulness and resilience. And what they realized was that they had carried this perception of themselves as a loser, that was deeply entrenched in their being, and that this barrage of challenges woke them up to or transformed them to this different state of awareness. It wasn't a linear progression, but to this different state of awareness where they could no longer hold the notion of being a loser. There was no space for it anymore, because they accomplished all of these, they faced all the challenges, all the, what are, I don't know if I have another word for it right now, but they faced all the the challenges to their very being that were presented throughout this quest. It was like a vision quest. And it completely shattered their notion of themselves as a loser. And so they couldn't hold that perspective anymore. It was not possible anymore. It was a tremendous change of state, like from solid to gas, or solid to liquid and liquid to gas. Good morning, good evening, Gia. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. We are talking about change of state and how we can utilize this. So this person, having gone through this trial by fire after fire after fire. Welcome, Sally. Oh my gosh. It's been forever since you've joined us. It's wonderful to have you here with us. So after these incredible challenges, it's the only word that's coming to mind at the moment. This person's self-image of being a loser, it couldn't hold anymore. And we talked about how this was just such a traumatic experience, this days of one thing after another, handling insane extreme circumstances. And rather than being traumatized, them having mentioned that they felt like they'd been on walkabout, I encouraged them to really, really presence themselves to this as this extended experience in the crucible, as a walkabout, to look at it as a spiritual journey, test, lesson, passage, to awaken to the profundity of it, to be looking at it even more deeply, to recognize the nuances of the lessons that were available. And they said that it really truly took every ounce of their being to move through that situation, until at the end they were kind of a puddle. And I said, that's because you're so strong. It's because your belief in yourself as a loser was so powerful that it took that degree of intensity to be able to shift it, to be able to break it open, so that you could have a new experience of yourself, so that you couldn't deny the lesson that was there for you in these trials. And I think that there's something to look at in terms of, it took it, because she was so fixed in this notion, this identity. We talked about being able to exchange identities yesterday, because this identity was so fixed for her. It took rattling everything down to the very level of her cells in order for her to release it and to make this state change into a very, very, very different experience of being. And when we make that kind of change, and it doesn't have to happen with such suffering. You know, the suffering is our resistance. When we make that kind of change, the whole world changes. The outer world changes with the inner world. That our experience, our personal experience of the world, becomes sometimes unrecognizably different. That the whole context for our experience has now shifted to a different dimension, so to speak, a different state, a change of state. And we might call those moments, we might call it grace, although this experience for her certainly was not one that she would have called grace while going through it. In retrospect, I think that particularly because there was the magic of the presence of her grandmother that was reinforced over and over throughout this, that she can see in retrospect how she was being supported throughout the whole trial, throughout the whole clearing, cleansing, transformation in this crucible of fire and transformation. Just amazing. You know, it's so interesting. And the thing is that we have these opportunities in life all the time, to be able to recognize the transformation. So I have another story to share in a minute, but Sally says, I get this today. In the past few months, I've had to face up to an abusive mother, her loss of life, my little sister, and all of her issues, a division between myself and half of my children, fracturing my tibia, and now the loss of my car. I'm still just breathing and going with the flow and allowing life to do its thing rather than resisting all the changes occurring around me, loving myself a little deeper and more compassionate with my feelings right now. Sally, congratulations. That's profound, profound, profound. To be present in the maelstrom of events and chaos and upheaval and change and pain and to be able, when we can, to step back and recognize it as a crucible, as a change, as a trial by fire, so to speak, as a transformational path. The more rigorously we hold to the fixedness, the more rigorously we hold to the way we believe things should be, or hold to our identity as something that's fixed, the more struggle, the more suffering we'll have. And the more we're able to flow with the experiences of life, the more grace we have. So last night, we have movie nights every Thursday night. And Sally, by the way, it sounds like you are making this passage, loving yourself a little deeper and being more compassionate with yourself. And finding that grace, even in the face of tragedy and pain and challenge. Pain and suffering are not the same thing. Suffering is when is it very much about the stories we tell. Suffering is where there's the holding to trying to make things stay the same or be something other than they're not. We can have pain without suffering. We can be present to the pain, but the suffering is an extra layer that we add on top of that. So the loving of yourself and the deeper compassion for yourself are the blessings that allow you to move through the challenge of the circumstances. So for movie night, for Sustainability Now, we put on movies every Thursday, or we air interviews. And there was just last night at the very last minute, it was so interesting to, I had reached out to the person who was supposed to join us for an interview, and it turned out that we had a miscommunication, and they were just going to show up for 15 minutes when we were expecting them to be there for the live Q&A after the airing of the interview. And at the last minute, I discovered that there was a problem with the interview itself. And had this person been able to show up, it wasn't going to work. But we discovered this at the last minute, and we were able to pivot in the very last minute. Like we had the universe gave us grace to be able to find something else, find different programming, put that announcement out in our notification, and we were able to pivot literally just in time to make the evening work, and nobody felt disrupted, and we were able to, or we're intending to be able to reschedule the airing of the interview with the live Q&A, and like we dodged a bullet, so to speak, and did it with such grace. It was really quite amazing. There was no resistance. It was just like, oh, okay, let's pivot. Here's what happened. Wow, the universe is really supporting us and giving us the opportunity to correct this and make it a smooth transition for everybody. It was magic. It was really, truly magic, because it could have been a horrible situation, but it wasn't. On a whole bunch of different levels. We were able to just be in this beautiful flow and dance through this situation. So Sally says, thank you. I just keep pushing forward, allowing my emotions to come and be processed. So Sally, congratulations. And I suggest to you that rather than pushing forward, you allow yourself to flow. And that will make it even easier. Sometimes it takes everything we have to put one foot in front of the other. I get that. And if we're able to dance rather than push, to flow rather than push, then the suffering of it, the difficulty may still be there, but the suffering might disappear. And so that's what I'm talking about as far as change of state, is being able to move with life in the direction that it's going, to release our resistance, and allow, when we do release our resistance, it takes so much energy to resist. It takes so much energy to be pushing for things to be different from what is. You know, there are times when we're called to rise to the needs, the demands of the moment. And if we can do that without resistance, if we can be responsive rather than reactive, if we can be present, there's the magic of grace that arises. And Sally says resistance is debilitating, 100%. It takes so much energy to resist. And I'm not meaning to be a pushover or complacent or, you know, to not take action. I'm not meaning that at all. I'm meaning be present to the call of the moment. Allow yourself to really be present. And then it's a dance. It's not necessarily an easy dance. It's not necessarily a painless dance, but it's a dance. And there's a flow that can emerge, and grace. And so with that notion, may you take that grace into your weekend, through your weekend, through your life. May we all take that grace into our lives and dance with life rather than trying to conquer it or being conquered by it. You know, we are part of it. And when we can allow that vital life to flow through us, rather than meeting it with, you know, rather than trying to control it, contain it, repel it, then we can be a greater expression of that life and a greater expression thereby of our essential selves. So that's it for today. That's it for this week. What a week, right? I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living. And I so deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate this time with you and the opportunity to explore new ways of thinking, new ways of being. And until next time, so much